We talked about what might go on, and didn't seem to be very promising, so that dollar a day wasn't working out as great as it might have been. Didn't seem to be much of a future down there, so I decided I'd just well come on home. And so when we loaded out the next bunch of calves, I tied my saddle up in the car, in the box car, or stock car. So we loaded the cattle in and tied it up in the corner, hung it up high, and rode it up to Liberal. I think it was Liberal where we went, and they had to unload the cattle there to feed and water them. So I got my saddle out of there and shipped it on home, wrapped some burlap around it and tied it all up so they would haul it. I think we set it on the bus maybe. But anyhow, I went on up to Harrington. And Eleanor and folks come and met me down there, I think. And I got home, why, it looked pretty good around this country. And that was in the fall. And the next spring, well, it was the next fall, toward fall, Clifton had got a job of breaking a bunch of horses for the A rank. And he knew he had more than he could do, so he got me to come on help him. And we camped in the old camp that Malcolm had over there, just a building out in the timber, and we stayed in that. And Charlie Wilson lived on the place and run it, and they had some chickens, and they milked a cow or two, and they told him they'd furnish him some. He could have all the eggs and milk he wanted. So that's what we lived on about, is eggs and milk. Anyhow, we broke those, I forget, there was a dozen or so of them. We broke those along, worked on them, and got along pretty good. And they were going to sell them to the Army. That's when the Army was still buying horses for their cavalry. And they had kind of looked at them and thought they'd be big enough. They had to be a certain height and so on, but they was going to buy them when they got them kind of green broke. And I remember one of them that I broke, there was a officer of some kind took him over and rode him in the Olympics. That's where they went down the banks into the river and swam across the river and climbed it out on the other side, and they run those kinds of races. But Charlie kept me posted on that horse for a few years. He was getting along in the Olympics. He was quite a horse, I guess. He was when I broke him, he'd just go anywhere you headed him. Cross the ditch or anything, well, he'd just go right on down across it. No problem for him. But he'd just go wherever you pointed him. That's what made him so good, I guess. But that was the end of the New Mexico deal, anyhow. before that. And we worked most of the winter on them hay ranch horses. And then towards spring, they'd wintered some cows down at Strong City. Somebody'd wintered them down there for them. And we went down there and they hauled the horses down. And first night we slept in a bootlegger's house way out in the middle of the pasture. He cut hair and bootlegged. We just slept there on the floor. And then we rounded up the cattle and started home, the cows. And we came up across through the pastures and Council Grove. We come down through there. And they'd already planted the potatoes. Been March when they planted them, I guess, but anyhow, we come down through the side of that town. We plowed up most of them potatoes. Got a lot of trouble over it. Anyhow, we left them down there in a pasture overnight. Went to Council Grove Hotel and our eating place with the sleeping rooms above it. And we stayed there all that night. And Charlie Wilson and Tater Stillwagon was helping us. And they got to drinking and had an old boy from Council Grove come up there that had wintered the cows, I guess. He had a colored fellow drove him up there in a limousine, and they done a lot of drinking there all evening. About midnight, that old boy got sick, and they took him home, and they had to rush him right on to the hospital. He had acute indigestion. Anyhow, we fixed the drinks for him quite a while there. Later on, poured some ketchup in and everything else, and fixed them all up for him. Winter didn't kill them all, but anyhow, the next morning, Charlie Wilson had on some new boots. And they had to come down the stairway, and those guys coming down that stairway, you thought they'd walk on eggs. Feet were sore and heads big. It was real fun watching them come down the stairway. But we drove those cattle on home, and it was quite a trip. 2 days of solid trailing. I guess that's getting up here pretty fast from Strong City, though. Out north of town's where we picked them up. That was quite a trip. That was the February that Lorene was born, when we was out there on that job. And when we got through with that, I come to town and got a job at the Fruit and Vegetables, Saros Fruit and Vegetable Company, working nights, unloading carloads of potatoes and crates of oranges and lemons and grapefruit and stuff like that. Good solid work. 365 sacks of potatoes in the car, and we hauled them out 40 at a time, or 20 at a time on a dolly, and piled them in the storage. That was the beginning of that job. But before we get too far with the fruit company, I forgot some stuff about down there in New Mexico. For instance, the chuck wagon. The chuck wagon hauled our bedding from here to yonder and carried it around for us. And they could get it every night and load it back up in the morning. And he cut his own wood, which was old cedar wood, old gnarly crooked cedar stuff growing around there, and he cut him some of that for his fire. And he made a pit, and he burned his fire down in there, and then he used them old big Dutch ovens, cast iron Dutch ovens, to cook his stuff in. Beef, beans, and biscuits, and every bunch of biscuits was just alike, about 2 inches across and about 2 inches high, and just exactly the same every bunch, and real good. Black coffee. I got so I like black coffee. Then I come back up here and went to putting cream and sugar in it because we had it. But that was a good old boy. He was a Spanish fella, not Mexican, but Spanish. And he was a nice fella. He was a real nice old guy. But that fresh beef, beans, and biscuits kind of, and alkali water most of the time. Once in a while you could find a spring that wasn't alkali. But some of their wells, they had windmills on some different wells around. And most of them you could, well, they even had the can with a little string of wire, because they put a wire on it. You could hang him right down in the well and dip you up some water if you wanted to. And most of that was decent to drink. But quite a lot of it was alkali stuff. For them, where it run down the ditches and springs, run down the ditches very far, why the edges of the bank would be all white right on down the line, with alkali stuff. Those kind of places you didn't want to drink because you'd be sorry if you did. I was anyhow. That old boy, he done a good job of cooking. Never had to wait on him either. He'd leave one place and go to the next, have it all ready when you got there for the next meal. Had a team. He kept around pretty close. And they butchered a yearling heifer. They were pretty fat, good shape. And they used the heifers because they were cheaper than the steers, I guess. But anyhow, they'd butcher a fat yearling heifer every week and hang her on the wagon at night, covered up with the tarp in the daytime, keep the sun off. Didn't have to worry about the flies and maggots like they would up here. But anyhow, they just carried it there on the wagon, covered up the sun was shining on it, uncovered at night. It didn't seem to kill anybody. Rain once in a while, come up a shower and rain a little, dry right out quick, the old sandy country. That old boy one night, I got pretty homesick there one little spell, and this night I guess I wasn't feeling too foxy, and he could tell there's something wrong with me. And so he came and talked to me after most of them had gone to bed. He came and talked to me quite a long time, just talking. And it seemed to help me quite a little. But he was nice enough to come and try to help me out a little. And I never did really thank him for it. I've worried about that a long time, but I never really thanked him like I should have. He was a nice old fella. I guess we're going to have to get into this coon hunting business of all the tickets I got around here. I can remember probably in the 17, 18, long in there somewhere, we never done much coon hunting or knew anything about dogs much. But the Wood brothers from over in the Wood country, over south the airport, they came over there one time and were hunting, and they treated coon. They didn't come to our place, but they were there on the Wildcat, and they treated a coon right down below the party place there where we lived, and we could hear them. And so we all run down there early in the evening, early in the night rather. We run down there to see what was going on, and they had a coon up this tree, and big cottonwood tree, and there was 4 or 5 of them, and they had 4 or 5 dogs, and them old dogs were sitting there in a bunch of them a bawling, and they shot this old coon with a shotgun. He was way up there in the tree, and he just started coming down that tree, not fast, but he just started moving down. He moved down there to about 10 feet up from the ground, and he jumped right out in the middle of that bunch of dogs. I never saw one do that before or since. But he jumped right out in the middle of them dogs. Of course, they took care of him pretty quick. But that's the first coon I ever saw treated with dogs. And Freddie, he had a coon hound or 2 down there, and we've got a few coons. Run up down a creek there and finally got a few coons, but never did have a too awful good a dog down there. Then we moved up on the Kern's place, and he got a pretty good dog or 2 up there. And when he got to moved over there where Jim lives, why, he had a real good bunch of hounds over there, different ones. He had an old Blue Tech. He sold to the guy up by Salina for $200. He was a good dog, but he had some pups out of him, and I think they were out of him, and black and tan female, and they were the best he had. He had one real good one, best I was ever out with, and he was Tony, and the other one was Drum. And they were just brown dogs, and pretty good sized, and real good dogs. One time we went up above Russell's, up the creek there, with those dogs, and they trade in the hole in the side of the bank, and Old Drum, he was still, Drum, he was still there. And Tony, we could hear him on up the creek. And we tried to get to that one in the bank there, but we didn't have much luck. He way down in there. But we keep hearing that old Tony going, and he went way up the creek, and then he went south and way up into the pasture. And then you're out of hearing over in there. Well, he got over pretty close to that round hill by North Alice's, and he went back east a little ways, and he was kind of bawling treed over there part of the time, and part of the time he wasn't bawling treed, and we decided we better go up and see if we could catch up with him, and we did. He was way up in the hills there. He'd been around a pond. Well, he was around a pond. And when the other dog finally went to him, they moved him out of the pond. They got too hot for him there in that pond, I guess. And they had him in a patch of brush. It was real patch of dogwood brush, the ravine. When we got there, well, they had him cornered in that, and they couldn't get to him with the darn. And we finally run him out of there, and they got him. But that old dog had run him, gosh, way over 2 miles off up into the patch there. Just really put him up around there, but they'd got in that pond, and then he'd have to swim in and tackle him, I suppose, and battle around, and he couldn't get him out of there by himself, probably. But he sure gave him a run for his money up around there. Kind of exciting to hear them old dogs that go and like that, next end of the ball and every jump. Kind of makes your blood run hot. And we went out one time before that with the Dant boys. They usually had an old dog. And remember we went up the creek there by Russell's one time, and guys, he struck a track and went to balling up there, and them guys, as soon as he started the ball, why, they took out and run up through the cornfield there, get there before he quit. We didn't think that was a very good kind of a dog. Wouldn't stay with it. They treat him way. But they run up through that cornfield. I know they had a light and left us in the dark running up through there. Anyhow, they did get a coon up there that time, but we figured if a dog wouldn't stay there treed while we was getting there, why, wasn't a very good dog. That's the way they done it anyhow. They used to tree in a Dan tree once in a while where you couldn't get them. So I cut the tree down, and that was too big a process. But sometimes in the smaller tree, you could go up, climb up the tree, and shake them out, and that'd give them a better chance. You didn't shoot them before you dog got a chance to kill them, and it was more exciting to shake them out and let the dog get them. Sometimes they might run a little ways before the dog could get them, and maybe they'd go up another sapling or something, but not very often. It's quite exciting, and you tramp around through the country half the night before you get one once in a while, before you can find a good hot track. Stumble around in the dark half the time, get colder than the devil, wish you were home in bed, and then if you got a coon, well, that took it all away. Got it all in good shape. It's kind of a different thing when the old coon gets in the water in the creek or pond or river or somewhere. Dogs can outswim them, but usually they can catch up with them out in the water, but when they catch up, why, they either get bit or can't get a hold of coon good. Old coon, he'll climb on their head, duck them in, climb on their head to be out of the water, and if they're too heavy, why, they sink a dog. But and they can bite about as quick as a dog can. It's kind of hard for them to get a hold of them and get them drug out of there. Quite a lot of carrying on. Old dog's got to be a faithful old guy to work at that long to get some of them guys out of the water and get them to the bank where they can work on them. Quite a deal. Sometimes you got 2 or maybe 3 up the same tree, younger coons running together. And if you shoot one of them out, why, the other may jump out and leave, or if you get one of them out some way and dogs are fighting him and him is squawking and carrying on, some of them will jump out and leave the country. And you got to go run them down again, but they get kind of hard to get one out of the tree, and unless you happen to kill him dead. And the dogs are fighting him, boy, that's squawking they do. It stirs them younger ones up and they start going somewhere, usually. So we had 4 young ones up a tree one time, and I think he shot one and he fell out there, but he just didn't hit him very bad. And when he started squawking, why, all 4 of them left. We never did get some of them. The time we got the others caught, I think we got a couple of them, but one of them got on away because the track was getting kind of worn out time he got the others. We've seen their tracks in the snow or mud once in a while where the dog was after them and they were running hard trying to find a tree and get to a tree. And them darn things will jump 8-10 feet at a jump when they're running. So they're getting along pretty fast. I remember one Thanksgiving, Everett and Freddie had been trapping down on the Wildcat, running the line of traps down there. This Thanksgiving Day, we went out in the morning and caught a coyote, and Freddie went down to the creek to run the trap line and do some duck hunting. And there was a great big old sycamore tree sitting on the bank of the creek down there on Russell's, or next to Russell's. And when he went by there, why, he saw a cub coon foot sticking out the hole. This kid, old top of that old sycamore had broken out, and it was about, 2 foot across, or 18 inches anyhow. It had broken off the top of it, and there was a hull standing up there about 3 feet or so tall, just a round rotten hull standing up there, and there's cracks around the bottom, and he saw a coon foot sticking out of that crack in the bottom. So he shot up there with a shotgun, and golly, that foot jerked around there and quivered a while, and then the last tail kept hanging out there, so he thought he'd killed him. But it was a big old tree, and he didn't want to climb it. And he came home and wanted Everett to go with him down there to see if they could get that coon. Of course, I went with him and got down there. Everett, he tried to climb that old sycamore tree, and he couldn't make it good enough, so he gave her up and come down, and they were about to give it up. I said, well, I'll climb it for half. And they said, okay, go ahead and climb it for half. So I went up there, and I had a hell of a time of getting up the tree. Big old sycamore tree with not enough limbs on it hardly. One of them I had to squirm around, getting a foot higher than my head and hooked up over the limb. Had to hang on so hard with my arms. Got my leg up over it, and I got on up there and jerked on this leg, and it was stilling up. Some fuzz was sticking out of another side of it. I pulled on that, and God damn, it's come alive. And there was 2 coons in there. And this one, he come up out on top. I poked around, got a little old dead stick to poke him a time or two, and he come up on top of it. And I took a swing at that stick, about fell out, of course. Anyhow, he jumped out on the limb, and it was kind of slick, and he swung down around under it and fell off down into the creek. And those guys run him around down there, and they finally got him. But then I pulled the other dead coon out, threw him down, and had a heck of a time of getting back down that tree without breaking my neck. And them suckers wouldn't give me but the coons about $10 a piece, the skins, and I got $5 is all them guys would give me. I was trying to get to 10, but they said, just after that one coon's all they was after. All I was supposed to be after is that one coon. But I did get the $5, so that wasn't too bad, I guess. Them guys get me every time I turned around. That was quite a little deal. I remember one night, Freddie and I went down to the Wildcat from up on the Kern's place, and we had an old dog. He wasn't too awful good, but pretty fair old coon hound. We parked the truck right down there below the big stone house on the green place, and right south of the track. We went down through the Kitten Creek, lower end of it there south of the railroad, and a big circle down around on the Wildcat. It was kind of a frosty night. It wasn't too good, and we didn't hit anything very fresh, kind of old worn out tracks, or couldn't smell them good or something. But anyhow, we got back up to the car and had a little coffee, and we was sitting there drinking that. Heard a little rustling in the weeds. turned the light on, it was a darn long-eared old coon cutting through there, heading southeast. And we got out, turned the dog, got the dog started on him, and took off down across the country there, timber and the creeks. And God, he run him for about a mile and a half down there, and he never did catch up with him. He was one of them old ridge coons, I think, and he just really took off. Yeah, it was kind of frosty, hard tracking anyhow, but he never did catch up with him. Probably went over on the lake or somewhere. I mentioned a ridge coon there a while ago, and he used to be, once in a while, you'd run across the track up on the hills, on the ridges, up in the pasture land. They were crossing over from one little creek to another, and probably ravines or something. Anyhow, them old guys really could go. Old ridge coons. They done a lot of hunting around up in the far ends of the little draws and stuff, I suppose. And they crossed over on the ridges quite a little. But they could really go. One night, Eddie came down to our place down the river. He went down to old Peterson's along there, and we run coons around down there. And never did get one lined out anywhere. They seemed like they would go down to the river water and down the bank and kind of disappear, and couldn't get anything going anywhere. And we finally turned around and come back up the river, and we run one in a big old cottonwood tree there right about close to Peterson's barn. And a big old tree with a hole in it. I think it's still there. But anyway, we couldn't get him. It get kind of late. Anyway, Freddie had a headlamp on his, and he looked over across the river, and there was 5 coons up in a tree over there to see the eyes. 5 different coons. And we had a notion to come and go into the house and get in the old rowboat and going over there and having a hell of a time, but getting so late. The ice on the river kind of a part of it. And Freddie didn't want it very bad, so we give it up. But them suckers had been to swim in the river on us. Must have been an old and a bunch of young ones or something, but they had crossed the river on us. They have crossed the river or going a muskrat hole or beaver hole or any place they can get out of sight. Hard to get lined out sometimes. Talk about swimming the river. I think it was Rodney and I were up the river fishing in the boat, and when I come back down to our band, we saw something in that water going across, and we kind of hurried up and got down there, and before we got to the bank, we kind of caught up with it, and there was a darn squirrel swimming across the river. Quite wide there where he was swimming too. He kind of going downstream a little bit, but he managed to get to the timber that he was heading for, I guess. There's pretty good trees there before he run into a bare bank down below. And I don't know why he was crossing, but he sure was, just swimming right across there. Time I was working down the field on the north end of the place, I looked up, there come an old buck deer across right out through the the middle of the country there, and he got down over the bank. He had one crooked front leg and he was carrying. I suppose it'd been broken, healed up wrong or something, but anyhow he got down over the bank some way there. There was a place he could make it down over, and he went down over there and went right on down to the water and got in and swam on across till he could hit the bottom, and went right on across up into the brush and timber on the other side. But he knew where he was going all the time. Freddie and I had been kite hunting, work kite hunting one day, and we come up through a little draw there south of Jesse's. There was some small trees in there, and one of them had a kind of a big stump on it, like it had grown over the old stump. Crack up and away, it was about a couple of feet up there. It was pretty big, but hole in there. The dogs got to smelling around there, and there's an old coon in there, big old coon. So I thought I'd like to see what my old Smoky dog would do with a coon. He's a pretty good coyote hound. I mean, the killing part. He didn't catch very many because he wasn't that fast, but he was most always in on the neck when they got him done. So we tied up, we had Grandpa's pair of dogs too. So we tied them two dogs up and got a piece of wire and wired that old coon out of there. And old Smoky, he tackled him, and the first thing he knew, the old coon was wrapped up all over his head, working on him, and he shook him loose pretty quick. And then he got to just, when the coon would start off, he just grabbed him and took him back. He done that quite a little bit. Tussled around there a while, and finally he got him rolled back over on his back, kind of where he could get hold of his neck. And that was kind of the end of it then, but he had quite a tussle with that old coon. Yeah, we done a lot of good coon hunting there with old Tony and Drum. They had a real good pair of dogs, and we done a lot of coon hunting, got a lot of coons with them. Real lot of fun. Go out with dogs to get the job done, and being able to find coons enough to work with. Quite a nice deal. Little coon hounds, they got and it's hot, they bawl every jump. Supposed to be calling it baying, I suppose, but we always call it bawling. And when they trade something, then the noise changed. It's got to be more of a bark than a bawl like they do when they're running. That's how you're told if they trade. Different kind of a bark. And they'd be maybe standing up on the tree, you'd be barking when you got there, but that's one thing you had to learn about the dog, what it sounded like when you had one treed, or whether you still are running him. They really get out and go a lot of times. Quite a little ways. Other times it wouldn't be much of a run. You didn't see I didn't ever see where you was going better. Wouldn't be tripping on something all the time. That dark old night was a good night usually. They weren't all good, of course. You had to kind of have a feeling of what kind of a night you want to go out, or what night you wanted to go. I don't know, the moonlight nights, I don't know why, but they didn't ever seem to be too good. Well, that seemed to be about all the decent kind of yarns I got right now. I don't know, on the coon hunting business. It was a lot of fun. We got a lot of coons. Missed a lot of them too, I guess. We treed a lot of them where you couldn't get them. Big trees or in holes or under rocks and stuff. But all in all, it was a lot of fun. Took up a lot of night time, that's for sure. And good experience, most of it. Learned a lot of things. And appreciate your old dogs working. That's one thing about it. Your old dog working good. Real interesting. You kind of know what he's doing. That makes it more interesting, of course. And that's about all, I guess, for this tape. It's about to run out, so I better shut up and quit on this one. We went horseback and trailed the dogs, and tried to scare the coyotes out, and then go get them. But we started out with a part Airedale bulldog female and staghound greyhound dog cross, which isn't really a kind of a coyote hound, but they kept a couple of them. Old Sleepy and Bones. Old Bones, he was a little more slick-haired, had some brindle stripes on him. But old Sleepy, he was a fuzzy-faced old guy, and God, they'd fight a buzzsaw. Weren't really very fast, but they tried hard and caught a few coyotes. And then they'd get a dog here and a dog there once in a while and kind of add to it, but they never got very much anything that way. Just more numbers. Kind of helped on the killing. And that went on that way for a while, and then they went out to Downs and bought a pair of dogs. An old Russian, one of them was 3/4 Russian wolfhound, and the other and quarter greyhound, and the other one was 1/4 Russian wolfhound and half 3/4 greyhound. He was a pretty good dog, but most of the Russian wolfhound, he looked like a Russian wolfhound, and he wasn't worth a darn. He wouldn't even follow you without you leading him part way. He didn't care anything about it at all. And the other one was a pretty good dog. And they picked up dogs here and there around, had a fair bunch, but finally they bred a good female to this 3/4 greyhound and half 1/4 Russian wolfhound. She was greyhound and staghound cross. And they got some real good dogs out of them. Dad had a pair, old Red and Queen. Old Red was a big old red dog, and she was a little white dog. And I had old Smoky. He was a kind of a smoky-colored old dog, kind of shaggy. And Freddie had 3. Skip and Bounce and something or other. lady or queen or something. Anyhow, they were pretty good dogs. And got to catching coyotes with that bunch, and they were real good. We had lots of fun, caught a lot of coyotes, and we never missed a coyote after we got that bunch of working. Kick one out and they'd catch him or see him go over the hill, and they'd go get him. My old Smoky dog and that queen Dad's could smell good, and they saw one go out of sight over the hill while they'd run up there and kind of smell him in the air and get right on after him. And that helped quite a bit. Old coyote get out of sight, he thought he was safe. They'd slip right up on him that way. But we'd ride around over the hills. Had kind of a special places we'd kind of expect to see one, like a certain kind of a pocket, or just over the hill somewhere, or side of the hill, or different kind of places we kind of expected to find one. Ride in there and start down across a end of a draw, and old coyote might come out of there. Then they'd go, boy, and didn't usually run him too awful far. They can run just about twice as fast as a coyote a lot of times. They double on them. Other times it ain't quite that fast, but they pretty near double on a coyote. They get out and get after it. On some coyotes, some of them go pretty damn fast too, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. Ride down through a draw and have the old coyote get out on the other side and take out. Some dogs all go, boy, and you ride to them. It is quite a little fight when they get there. I've seen them old coyotes when the dog caught up with him and grab him, he'd just go end over end up in the air. 4 or 5 feet high, just go end over end there for a ways. Call that throwing them. Other dogs just go and climb on them. But some of them will just go grab them, and of course when they grab them, well, the coyotes kind of flips anyhow, but sometimes they really do flip. Quite a lot of fun. One of my best trips, I went by myself, and I had my dog and Grandpa's pair of dogs, and I come in the corner of the pasture over there by the pig tea house, and got through the gate, shut it, started on across there, and I saw a coyote go over the hill. He was about 3 blocks away, but he was up high on the hill where we quite often saw one. And he went over the hill, so I whipped up and looked over across there, and the dog went up on there and picked up that track and took off. I got up on the hill, I couldn't see nothing, and I kept on going west. Come up over another little raise, went down through a ravine, and up on another little raise, and got over there, they had him on the pile, and they got him killed. And I started on for home, cutting across there, down the south end of the old Kern's place. I rode down there to the creek at about Pretty near quarter of a mile up on the hill. And there went a car around the top of the hill. So I hustled up and got up there, and them two dogs took it around the hill and headed east. Old Red, he kind of got tangled up. He went around the hill the other way. But when I got up there, I couldn't see anything, so I kept on going east. Got through another gate, went around the corner there, the hill. And golly, they had him in a big old brush patch. And two dogs. And old Red come in there pretty quick, and they took care of him pretty soon then. But I got those two, and I hadn't been gone home from home on about 2 hours, I don't think. You didn't catch two carts in one day very often. Very seldom, in other words. But I got two of them wrestled right quick. It was the best I ever done. Thought I'd really done something. I know it sure made Dad happy that I'd got 'em, two of 'em. That kite hunting's like the coon hunting. It's kind of a wintertime job, because I didn't take the cattle out of the pasture a lot of times till November. And you didn't hunt too much when there's cattle in the pastures. And then you quit in the spring, of course. But a lot of winter entertainment, sure enough. Those days, there wasn't any locks on the gates like there's nowadays. You could go anywhere you wanted to go about. Which nowadays they got them all locked up. You couldn't get from here to yonder if you went through the gates. But you could go about anywhere. We went all over the country around hunting. Not too awful far from home, but we hunted our territory pretty good. At times there'd be a couple of us or more, but if a couple of guys went, why one guy'd have a few dogs and the other'd have a few dogs, and spread out. Boy, you get all excited when the other guy was waving you to go some direction, or you see a car over toward him, and you get somewhere where you can see him and wave at him to get over there and get after him. Those kind of deals was a lot of fun. You kind of had to have it all worked out, you know, as you went through the time, got your experience. But you wave at a guy from on the hill over here and tell him which way to go, and he'd get going. Probably could run on to him over there as he's cutting along. See the old kite up going somewhere. All that kind of stuff was fun. Dogs got so they knew what was going on pretty much. They get awake real quick. Once in a while they'd scare a damn jackrabbit and run him for quite a ways, but they got so they wouldn't run them too hard unless they got right close. They got so they kind of quit running them. They're hard to catch. They duck and dodge darn much. Hard on their feet. One time they had a little racetrack over there by where Britt's, that's south of Britt's house there. Andy Wiesner lived there. he raised some hounds, but these were fancy dogs. They raced them there, greyhounds. Had a track out there where they chased rabbits, and then they tried to make a dummy on a wind-up machine to let the dogs out and wind that thing up around there and have them chase that, see how fast they're going. They never did get it so the dogs couldn't just run over it before they got very far. But they turned them old jackrabbits loose out there, turn a couple of dogs in there and give them point systems on there, turning them and this and that. And they'd go by the rabbit so fast they couldn't catch him, and the old rabbit sidestepped, and they'd go on by, and then they'd cut a big circle and just run themselves down out there and never catch the rabbit. And sometimes they'd turn in more for relief dogs, and finally they'd get some of them in there enough to catch the rabbit to keep from running the other dogs to death. And we had an old dog, I can't remember his name right now, kind of a shaggy old dog and long neck, kind of a hound, and that sucker, if he could ever get up close enough to turn it around jackrabbit, he seemed like his old long neck, he'd just reach out and scoop him up as he went by. And we was thought we'd enter him in there, catch the rabbits for him or something, you know, and make their money. They wouldn't even let us in the pen. He wasn't registered, and we didn't belong to nothing. But we thought he could scoop them old rabbits up in there pretty fast after they'd run them a ways. But we didn't get the job done. I remember one morning, we were on a Kern's place. Time we got the chores done, the feeding done, why, it had started to snow, great big old flakes, no wind. It got so thick you couldn't hardly see anywhere, just really coming down. And we thought it'd be a good time to go coyote hunting, so we took off up toward the old timber claim. So we run onto a coyote track in the snow. We thought he was fairly fresh. Still see it in there before he got filled up. So we started tracking him. And old Sleepy, he could smell it real good down in the holes. He kept trying to go. We'd try to keep him back from going too far ahead of us, but we trailed that old track down around there for, I suppose, a mile and a half anyhow, down around through the hills there. He made a curve and started back north, kind of about where we'd run onto it before at the start. Gosh, there was getting to be a lot of snow by then. It was, must have had 6 or 8 inches. Just big old fluffy snow and laying right where it fell. Still coming down. Couldn't see very far. But anyhow, we thought we were pretty close to this old coyote. He come up out of a draw and went up on a ridge. And there was some pockets along the other side where they quite often scare one out. But anyhow, old Sleepy, he just couldn't stand it anymore, and he got out ahead a little ways. And we come up on top of the hill and crossed a narrow ridge there and hit the end of a little old sharp ditch running down the other way. Golly, he was just following this track out there. We was on the one side of the ditch and he was on the other. But we could see him. He was snuffing down in them tracks and kind of moving along there pretty good. And all of a sudden he stopped and raised his head up and looked over there, and there that old coyote was laying in the snow about 10 feet from him. And of course the coyote got up and started off. And he didn't get very far. There was a whole pack of hounds on him. They had a heck of a time of keeping track of him. He was down in that snow and they couldn't get a hold of him. And they wallowed him around there quite a long time before they could get him tuckered out, killed. But there's so darn much snow that they couldn't keep track of him. He'd squirt out and start off somewhere. That's the most snow I ever got in. I mean, while it was coming down, just big old fluffy flakes really come down, piled up. And one of the dogs got kind of hot, I guess. It was kind of a younger, not too special a dog, but he got pretty hot, I guess. Must have got pneumonia, because darn, he died in a couple of days. Thought it was pneumonia maybe from that, getting warmed up in that old snow. That was really one time we tracked it down there just by the snow. We knew he was close because the hole stayed open pretty good. Another time we got our chores done. God, we'd had a kind of a blizzard this night. And there was drifts and snow all over the ground, most of it, but cold and kind of windy, pretty cold. And we rode up there on the Goheen country and got through a gate and cut around the hill there along the fence. God, there an old coyote got up out of a snowdrift there by the fence and took off down a real deep, sharp bank draw. And the dogs scared out and run him down around there. Then he finally come out where it was a little flatter country, but the banks were real rough. And the ditch was crooked and dips in the gravel where the water washed it out a little deeper here and there. They run him down there quite a ways before they could get to him. He'd cross back and forth across that thing. Finally he'd come out on the little flatter place, took a cow path and started around the hill. They caught him pretty quick there, but he was a big old mean fighting coyote, and they were having quite a battle. And one of the dogs, I guess old Smokey, he got bit on the side of the head, and old coyote had stuck a tusk through his lip, and the dog was, when he got loose, well, he was hooked up with that lip, and he was kind of whimpering about that and pulling back and had his lip stretched way out there. And I finally got my boot heel on it and slid it down off with a tusk, and he got loose. Got back in there, but sometimes those dogs would get bit. Gosh almighty, head swell up and be bigger than hell for a day or two. They'd lock mouths with a coyote once in a while. try to bite him and bite right into his mouth. They get all cut up, holes poked in their noses, over the top of them, and cuts on their lips, side of their heads. They seem to kind of like it if they got used to it. Anyhow, they'd go back for more. When they pipe the cow, they try to get him by the neck, choke him that way and get him killed, but the old cows always working to get the dogs cut loose from him. Boy, he got a chance, he'd nail a dog real good. And he'd even work loose of a throat hold once in a while and start chewing on the side of the dog's head or something. Dogs soon learned to keep their front feet back out of the way when there was laying there chewing on him. But when you ride up on a ridge and start down along a little old pocket there, and the cow gets out about a half a block away from you, or a little farther maybe, takes off, all them dogs are going. That's kind of exciting. Running, nip and tuck around the corners, over the hills, catching them. Very seldom was right close. When they caught him, they run off from you, kind of. I guess he didn't ride as hard as they run, but a lot of excitement. One time we caught an old cow that had been eating inkberries, and Ray tied him on his saddle and got started home, and seemed like he kind of got that old inkberry stuff out all down the side, over the saddle, blanket down the side of the horse. Golly, such a mess. Yes. He was real upset about that, I remember. Took him off and threw him down and cut his ears off and went on home, I think. But he sure made a mess. Then when you're riding along, got one tied on behind your saddle, and you're riding along quite a ways, then you can see the old cow blinking once in a while. You start up your hammer there pretty quick to bat him in the head. Stay. Sometimes kind of coming back to life. Once in a while, get a horse that didn't like them stinking things tied on behind the saddle very good. I'd even kick at you while you're doing it if they didn't like it. Kind of stinking things. Didn't blame them much. One thing about them old cowhounds, if you have to get a little short on feed and work them hard for a day or two, and they got thin, they get down pretty thin once in a while. But the nice part about it, if you might find a dead critter somewhere, they'd get filled up on that real quick. Or happen to kill an old horse, pick up an old horse somewhere and kill him for your hogs and save a leg or two for the dogs, and give them all the horse meat they want to eat for a couple of days, and then they get fat right quick. Just about 3 days, you can get them fat. Feed them all the meat they want. One time, I'd been coyote hunting. I hadn't seen anything. I was coming in home, come down across my laps there, and got through the gate into old Kern's place. I heard a little dog a-yapping down over the hill just north of us, out of sight. And I went out there to see what the heck was going on, and there was two coyotes, and they were sure picking on him. He was trying to go, a little old stray dog, a little old cocker spaniel looking kind of a dog. The old coyotes were really pestering him, and so I kind of ducked back out of sight, figured where they'd show up next, and I rode out there, and dogs was looking, and the goddamn coyote showed up out there, and just as he showed up, why, the little old dog come up right in front of the goddamn dogs, and that's what they saw, and they took him and got him, and they like to treat him to death so I could get him off of him. They really worked on him, and I finally got him off of him, and he started on toward town, limping and wobbling along. I hope he made it. I never did hear. But the damn coyotes got away. Otherwise, I was going to save that dog's life, and then they caught him and damn near killed him because he showed up before they saw him before they could see the coyote, and that's what they thought they was after. Poor little old guy. My dad tells about hunting with his brothers, probably before I was born or around that time. Anyhow, they'd been a-hunting, and they come back by this place where the farm building set right close to the pasture land, opened right up out into pasture land, and had some corrals and barn and stuff around there. And they was cutting down by it to go back out on the road and head for home, but they scared an old coyote out of the side of the hill there, pretty close to the barn, and he run down through the corral and the barn and cut around there a little bit. And the dog was giving him such a close go that he run in a chicken house. And I want you to stop and think about this a little bit. You run a coyote in a chicken house where there's a bunch of old hens on the roost or the nests, and put about 3 or 4 or 5 hounds in there, and they probably caused a hell of a commotion in there. Anyway, they got the coyote. He probably an old coyote was either getting pretty old or crippled or something. He just kind of laying around back out close there and picking him up a chicken when he got hungry, I figured. But that had been quite a commotion, I think. Now I'm going to cut into, after we moved down on the river, I decided we needed some foxhounds to run those coyotes out of the river bends so you could get a run at them with the other dogs. But so I got a pair of hounds. And one of them was a real good dog, and the other one was fair. Anyway, you get a coyote started around the river somewhere in some timber or brush along the river bank. You turn them dogs loose, and they travel down around there and maybe get one to go on and really get after him. But you never knew where they were coming out. You couldn't tell where they were coming out. They'd start one way, and if it didn't look good to them, well, they'd cut back down through the fence row and go out the other side of the bend, or they even cross the river on you real quick. They didn't seem to mind that a bit, swimming the river. They're crossing on the ice, of course, and they could. But that I run into quite a lot of wild going, that foxhound stuff. They're bawling and going, they just get after an old cod and they really bawl and go. And they could run them down, but they never, of course, couldn't catch them very often. Didn't have enough good ones to catch them and handle them. Maybe one dog would catch up with him, but he'd be so damn far ahead and by himself that if he caught a cod, he couldn't handle him and do any good. But we run around a lot with them. They cut a big circle. Sometimes they go in a 10-mile circle. But they kind of come back to where they started a lot of times. That they'd take a big old circle and go, God, for a long ways. I'd run them at night, and they run around pretty close at night, back and forth and around up in the hills there. But when it started getting daylight, boy, they'd take out for somewhere out of the country, it seemed like. Some old dog might run him way off up by Keats and finally give up and come on back home. But it's a wild deal. We got a few coyotes by having them, but you never could tell where they were going to go or when. They went up along the river and didn't look too good while they'd cut out through a field like a milo stubble or cornfield. You didn't know where they were going till after they'd gone. Couldn't see them. It caused a lot of commotion, that foxhound stuff. Adolph lived on that house right north of Seco Park, Ball Diamonds, the old house in there. He called up one time, wanted me to bring the hounds up and see if I could catch that old coyote. He'd caught a chicken. He was out toward the road there eating it. So I loaded up the hounds and I went up there. And God, they took it and went over the hill west. So I went down around on Kitten Creek, down below the old Kern's place down there ways, down by the Hudson place. Anyhow, I was standing up on the edge of a bank that went down into the creek, kind of a wide creek bottom there. And I could hear the dogs coming. Pretty soon I saw the coyote coming around there. He was just coming around on top of that kind of a ledge that broke off down into the creek. But he was coming around there pretty good. And I was kind of hid from him. He got up to about 30 feet of me. I had a .22 rifle, shooting long rifles. I let him have it, and boy, he just went down in a pile. And I thought, well, I'll just leave him there till the dogs come along, let them find him. Gosh, just before they got there, which was only a half a minute maybe, the sucker, he kind of wiggled around a little bit and he crawled around. He finally fell out over that rocky ledge kind of. Well, I thought that's all right. Let them, kind of wanted them to tackle him while he was alive and know that they killed him. So I didn't do anything. I could have shot him another time or two. There's kind of little brush, trees and stuff before we got down, clear down to the bottom of this ditch, all along that creek, Kitten Creek. And the time they got there, when they come along, they just run on past for a little ways, and finally decided they didn't have any tracks, so they come back, found a way, went over the bank, they went down over there. He was down in the bottom of the ditch under another rock down there, a couple of rocks kind of washed up together. He was under them. And I could have shot him there, but I wanted these dogs to get him. Old Rowdy, he was a good fighter, but oh dude, he didn't care. He'd rather wait till they made some more tracks than follow them. He didn't care much about fighting. But anyhow, I thought he was so bad off that they'd get him. So I punched him out of there. There was a fence row and a cornfield and brush and weeds and stuff. He got over into the cornfield and started to go south, and old Rowdy, he caught him, and there'd be a commotion up there, and then they'd go a little ways, and he'd catch him again, and they kept getting a little farther between catches, and they went a mile and a half south and crossed the creek and went up into the hills there back of the old Fairman Lake, just over the hill from where Lee Walters used to live, Eureka Lake. And they finally fizzled out over there, and we never did find the coyote or know what happened to him. He crawled in a hole or died or something over there. But they finally gave up on him and come back. I could have got him just as easy not. But I guess Phil didn't lose any more chickens. Anyhow, you could turn them old guys loose out in the hills and sit on a point and listen to them all afternoon if you wanted to. Probably never see the coyote, but you knew where he'd been. You never knew where he was going to go. Yeah, got quite a commotion. I like that kind of thrills you, get your blood all stirred up when them old hounds are bawling and they're going fast over the hill and down across and up over the other hill and around the bawling with a jump. Then there's times when they can't run it good. Spend a half a day getting a couple of miles, falling around, and just as well quit and gone home, but they're hard to catch if you turn them loose. So they get kind of run down. You don't know where they're at unless they're trailing something. So it was quite an experience anyway in foxhound business. I first got them, I was afraid I was going to lose them, but they never got too far for a little while after I got them. And when they got done, well, they'd come on home. Might be morning before they come back, but when they got sick of running it, why, they'd come on home. That is quite a deal. We tried to haul the dogs and pickups, kind of quit using horses, so it was a lot different kind of a hunting job. Thought maybe we could shoot the coyotes or had to get the psych dogs around where they could get a run at him, but it didn't work out awful good. We got a few coyotes, of course. It didn't really work like it should have, like I thought it would. But some of the neighbors got White, so he got some hounds, and he run them around too. He had one dog kind of like Rowdy that I had. Just when he got after him, boy, he took him somewhere and nothing else was with him. Just run off from everything. So it didn't really. Thought I had about 4 of them that fast to run together. Why, it might have been a little more interesting. They might have caught some of them. That's the way it goes. Oh, dude, he a little shorter legged than Rowdy was, but he liked to work them tracks. He didn't care whether they got anywhere very far or not. He just liked to smell them and bawl once in a while. He'd work 2 or 3 hours on an old cold track he could smell once in a while and never get anywhere. He'd stay with it, bawl around once in a while, track a little more. Rowdy got so he wouldn't fool with them unless he could move them somewhere. I never could figure out how they could tell which direction the coyotes are going. They very seldom started the wrong way. They might, some inexperienced dog might go the wrong way for a little way, but not very far. He'd have turned around and take off the right direction. I never could figure out how they could tell that. I don't know if anybody knows or not. Surely wouldn't have been any hotter one track apart than the one before. They sure knew which way it went. Carry on the right direction. Well, we're about to run out of stuff here, so I'm gonna quit on this one, I guess. Just about to run out of time. So, take care.